week and a half of work I got left. Whew. Man, I tell you, I took a job that a guy 10 years younger should have taken.
Oh,
So, it's not that I couldn't do it, but, I'm getting through it, but boy, I'm gonna go do it next year, but I'm gonna go work there next year, but I'm not gonna do the same job because it's a young man's job.
okay. Exhausted.
Yeah, but I lost 15, 16 pounds,
Okay.
right, with all the walking I do, like
Okay.
lifting and. Good evening, everybody. It is 5:15, and we are at the December meeting of the Capital Improvements and Street Maintenance Committee for the City of Wausau. And welcome, I'd like to welcome everybody. And with that, we will go on to item number 1, approval of the minutes of the November 10th, 2022 meeting. Is everybody okay with the meeting, with the minutes? Is that a motion, Mr. Denny, Alder Denny?
Motion to approve prior minutes.
And a second by Alder Hinkie. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the November meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. Item number 2, 2023 street reconstruction projects, discussion and hearing results and make recommendations. And I guess with this, we will go to Alan, who is here.
Sure. The Board of Public Works held the public hearing on Tuesday. The comments were gotten to you, I believe, by Lori just today. I don't know if you've all had a chance to read those, but there were a few, obviously, comments regarding the affordability. I would say no more than, we may always receive some, but no more than probably normal. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. My recommendation would be to approve the projects as proposed.
Yes, Lisa?
Thank you. I have just one, I guess, when I read the public feedback, it seemed like a lot of it was stuff that you guys could work out offline with residents about, the condition of either driveway approaches or sidewalks that either are or aren't damaged and whatnot, but it didn't seem like there was an overwhelming amount of opposition to any of it. So, and in fact, I think even in the minutes, people were referred to you all for offline discussion separate from their comments. So I feel like we'd be okay to move forward. I'll make a motion that we push the projects ahead.
Thank you, Alder Rasmussen. Any further discussion or a second?
I'd second that.
And thank you, Alder Denny. All those in favor of accepting the 2023 street reconstruction project signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously. On to item number 3, discussion and possible action on parking restrictions on Torney Avenue from McDonald Streets to Town Line Road. And this one goes to Alan as well.
Sure. So we reconstructed Torney this past summer, and the road width is pretty much the same. The Torney is a very narrow, I believe there's only 30 feet of right of way, or 33 feet, something like that. So it's a narrow cross section. We really didn't change that. I guess it's in the report here. It's 33 feet back to back. We went 24 feet back to back of curb here, and the sidewalks are attached directly to the back of curb. It's a mountable curb to make it easy for everybody to get into their driveways. But the request did come in from the residents, signed by quite a few residents. It's attached to eliminate parking. The petition was to eliminate parking on the east side, and you can see the amount of people that did sign it. Lori did send letters out to everyone on the roadway. I don't see anyone here to testify, but I did receive 3 phone calls, 2 in support. Dan Wythe at 1309 Torney called in support of no parking on the east side, and Megan Pratt of 1329 Torney was also in favor of parking on both sides. I did receive 1 call who wasn't in favor of the parking. It was Mary McCartan at 1325 Torney, and she was a very nice lady. She has lived on Torney for 54 years, and she was not in favor of it. She said, it's been that way for 54 years. Why do we have to have no parking now on one side? So
Thank you, Ellen. You know, I have to agree. I know, I've traveled down Torney. I haven't traveled down it since it's been redone, but it is a very, very narrow street, and I think this is a very, very good idea to go move forward with this. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I agree. I think that sometimes we've had difficulty in other neighborhoods. I know there's some in mine where the right-of-way is fairly narrow. And, you know, when people are parked there, either one side or both, it makes it difficult for larger vehicles to get through. It makes it difficult for people to see to get in and out. We have trouble plowing snow. We have trouble picking up garbage there in those areas. So I think restricting on one side when the right-of-way is narrow certainly makes sense. If most of them are supportive of the east side and there's no reason not to, I would move that we take steps to restrict parking on the east side then, on that block,
Restrict parking,
on the east side.
okay.
They want no parking on the east side, right? So we would,
Yes, so we would be parking on the west side only.
correct.
Okay. Any other further discussion, Alder Denny?
Yeah, so how does this play into our street parking strategy that we've been implementing, had over the years with the alternate side? I mean, are we setting a precedent now to try to do this in a lot of other places, or are we finding that the alternate side isn't as good as we originally thought it was?
Have you been down Torney Avenue?
I have not.
Okay, I suggest you go down Torney Avenue, because it is a very, very narrow street. And I guess, Alan, that you leave it up to you.
This would be no parking on the east side all the time, not alternate.
Right, but it's currently alternate day parking.
It's currently not restricted at all.
Gotcha, okay. Oh,
So
okay.
right now it's wide open, and kind of what happened when we put the sidewalks directly behind the back of curb. Before there was like maybe a foot boulevard, and it was just really a foot of, we couldn't grow grass, we couldn't do anything. So when we
Okay.
reconstructed it, we decided to put the curb, or the sidewalk. And I think another kind of reason for no parking is people are kind of pushing their way up onto the sidewalk now when they're parking, because it's narrow. So I think they're feeling that, hey, if I don't pull up on the sidewalk, I'm going to restrict the flow. So we don't want people parking on the sidewalk. So I think a hope with this too is that if we restrict parking on one side, people will not be pulling up onto the sidewalk to park.
Sure,
They'll feel-
I get that. The partition reference is alternating day parking, and I.
Yep, and that was another option they had but the alternate day parking creates confusion because of the overnight parking, even and odd. So we're better off, in my mind, just putting no parking on one side, especially if that's what the residents are requesting.
Fine with me.
I have a motion to,
I'll second it.
okay, a second by Alder Hinkie. So we have a motion to accept the parking restrictions or on the, no parking on the east side of the street and parking only on the west side of the street for Torney Avenue. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And again, that passes unanimously. And I guess we are going to be tabling item number 4 because there is no action on that at this moment, as Eric had said. So we move on to item number 5, discussion and possible action on urban non-point source construction grant agreement to convert the Strawberry Fields dry detention pond to a wet detention pond. Mr. TJ.
Yes.
So this is a project that I've brought before multiple times and discussed with SISM. We applied for a grant up to $149,000 to reconstruct this pond to help us meet our TMDL requirements. So the schedule for this project would be to approve this grant, and then we would go out to RFP for design services in the spring of next year of ·23, design throughout '23, and then construct in '24. Total project costs, including design, is around $470,000. We have budgeted for design services in the '23 budget. So I'd recommend that we approve and accept this grant.
Thank you. Comments? Yes, Alder Hinkie.
How much will this help us with our suspended solids?
It will help us with suspended solids as well as the phosphorus reduction. I mean, it's going to get us about 5% towards our permit year goal, for about 5-year goal. I'll give you another update here in I think, item number 7 on how we plan to achieve the next step in moving towards TMDL compliance, but this is about a 5% over that 5 years.
5% to the total goal?
For that 5-year goal,
Yeah.
yeah, not our total TP reduction goal.
Okay.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Yes, Alder Gisselman.
Can you just explain what we're doing here? What's the difference? I think the citizens just need to know a little bit about what the difference is and what we're trying to do and maybe the science behind it. Just a little bit of a background, TJ.
So right now, this pond is called a dry pond. It collects all the stormwater runoff from the road along 50th Avenue where that subdivision or apartments are. And right now, this pond acts strictly as a volume control, flood control. All this water comes into the pond, and there's a restrictor plate in the outfall of the pond that stops the flow from just freely discharging into the river and then possibly flooding downstream. Right now, what our plan is to make this a wet pond, so there will be a consistent body of water. It will be about 5 feet deep, and then it will act as both flood control and TSS or phosphorus removal. So once the stormwater comes into the pond, it will dissipate into the existing body of water and allow the phosphorus and the suspended solids to sink to the bottom and remain in that pond rather than be discharged into the river. And then, periodically we'll have to drain the pond and dig out the sediment and contaminants and then bring that to the landfill. Yep.
So what is the construction required to make that happen? Is just change the baffles, or you're changing?
We'll have to make the pond a little deeper so we can have the that body of water, the volume in there, and then we'll have to change the outfall, the restriction, the outfall, and then we'll have to line the pond. You can either line it with 2 feet of clay or a rubber liner. But yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes,
I'll make a motion that we approve the grant agreement.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Hinkie and a second by Alder Dinny to move forward with this retention pond or wet pond. Detention basin located on 50th Avenue from dry pond to a wet pond. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. And then on to item 6, discussion and possible action on sidewalk policy with special assessments.
Yes, so I tried to explain it, I guess, my best in the background information here, but every year we do have a sidewalk replacement program, or since I've been here. So it typically runs about $150,000, and it's basically based on complaints. So we receive complaints, someone from from engineering will go out, inspect the complaint, and we'll sometimes we have to temporarily patch it with asphalt, and then we put it in the program for the following year to be replaced. And that'll lead up our $150,000 typically. So the current assessment policy is to assess the homeowner 25% of the cost to replace that if it's not based upon a boulevard tree, because the boulevard tree would have caused it, and that's the city-owned tree, so we don't assess that. So we've come to, over the years, we send out a lot of letters with assessments on them, whether they're getting assessed or not. And you can see, based upon a $150,000 project, in the last 4 years, how much money we've actually collected. So it's not a real lot, and it's an extreme amount of effort administratively, mainly on Lori and some of our inspectors, to try and track what is accessible and what isn't. So just to minimize the amount of time, because what happens on the project is we have to get the people to sign off on the special assessments because we don't have a hearing. So if they don't send a letter back, which typically they maybe 30% do the first send, and Lori has to send a second letter and a third letter, and then we have to try and find phone numbers and call, and it gets to be a lot of administrative effort. So the fact that we're getting $8,000 back last year out of 100, what did we, that was total project last year? 188,000, we got $8,000 back in assessments. I'd like to change the policy to not assess that 25% expense. And just, that would be on the street reconstructions too, because also on street reconstructions, we don't collect hardly any revenue on it, and it is really a task for the inspector when all the streets are completely ripped up and all the sidewalk is gone, the sidewalk is gone for the services that go in, and then it's gone for the trees, and then trying to figure out what's accessible and what isn't ends up being an argument between the homeowners and the inspector a lot of times. So I don't want to change the policy for new sidewalk. I think that should be assessed at the 50% to the homeowners, but I'm asking this committee to consider not assessing the 25% on the sidewalk replacement.
Yes, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I got to say, I like this idea. I think that this is one area where even though it's not a ton of revenue, in areas where it gets charged, it's like one more point of aggravation. Like if somebody's street is getting redone, or even if it's not, when a sidewalk needs repair, I think if you ask most people, they will say that, a sidewalk is a benefit to the city, more so than it is to an individual homeowner, because it makes our community walkable. And so it's an amenity that we should not only encourage, but maintain. So I would add that for the small amount of revenue that we collect and the amount of internal work that has to happen to collect this small amount of money, it's just not worth it. And this is one opportunity where we could kind of give people a break. I mean, our community stays walkable, the sidewalks that are there get fixed, there's not these hazardous raise-ups and divots in them. It's just a maintenance thing, just like we maintain roads or anything else. So I think this would be good. We can give people a little break and, eliminate the administrative headaches that seem to be happening all the time for them. So I'll make a motion that we amend the policy as recommended by engineering.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to amend the policy as recommended by the engineering department by Alder Rasmussen, and a second by Alder Henke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And that again passes unanimously. Item number 7, discussion and possible action on stormwater utility update and urban non-point source planning grant application discussion. Mr. TJ.
All right, so I presented on stormwater utility back in October, and you all requested that I come back with some more information on, possibly moving this process forward. So I reached out to one of our stormwater consultants that helped us with the construction grant and discussed, what we discussed at the previous SISM, and talked about ways of possibly moving forward. And it's not just simply, doing a feasibility study, but there's also some other steps that need to be taken in order to make sure that that feasibility study is accurate, and which will also help the city meet our TMDL goals and see where we stand as far as reaching those goals. So there's a couple components into this grant application. One is existing conditions. Last time we did this was in 2018, and that was about a 4-year process to get where we completed that last stormwater study. So a lot has happened in the city to see, have we moved anywhere closer to meeting our TMDL compliance? And then also in that stormwater study, we identified about 10 best management practices that could be implemented. One of them was the Strawberry Fields pond conversion. There were a couple other pond conversions. But there's also some other ideas that they have, and we also identified that some of those best management practices weren't actually feasible. So this would be an update to find more practices to help us move forward that would possibly be more impactful than just a 5% reduction. So that would be another component. And then that way they would also give us costs of what that would be. That would help us with that feasibility study and understand what we would have to charge for rates. And then rather than doing construction or different studies, we could also do phosphorus trading. Since we are discharging too much phosphorus, there's possible trading between the treatment plant or neighboring communities with agriculture that could reduce our phosphorus. I don't know the ins and outs of it. That's why we'd like to do a study, but it's a possibility to a cheaper method of reducing our phosphorus impact. And then also the phosphorus leaf credit. We already do this leaf pickup, and then the DNR sets some strict practices in order to meet their phosphorus reduction for leaf pickup. So it's a study on how we do our leaf pickup, where we're lacking as far as what DNR requires, and then what would that impact be on our leaf pickup to reduce our phosphorus. Just a cursory overview, they believe that we could reduce or get about 223 pounds of phosphorus credit, and every 5 years we were required to lower our phosphorus reduction by 259 pounds. So that would be a huge burden lifted off of the city to get us towards that phosphorus compliance for the TMDL. And then finally, once those studies are completed, to give us a better idea of what fiscal requirements we'll have moving forward, we could update our feasibility study. In that feasibility study, they would give us multiple rate structures, look at the city as a whole, updated since the last time we did that study, which I think was in 2003. A lot has changed as far as impervious structures and just the city as a whole. So this study this grant application would be submitted in April of this year. We would find out at this time next year, and then we would begin the planning in 2024. And then that planning would probably take through 24 and 25.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I love this idea. I think that there's a lot of information we need to know about compliance and about stormwater and how we get there. I know that when we talked about it a number of times before, the totality of stormwater management is a very, very expensive proposition for us as a city, and total compliance from a revenue standpoint is pretty much out of our reach unless we have some other modes of treatment. And so whether that's phosphorus trading or leaf credits or a utility or a combination of all of it, we have to start somewhere. I mean, the only reprieve we got from what we were having to squirrel away on an annual basis was a little bit of a delay and a reprieve from the Walker administration, who suspended the timeline for compliance, and that alone is no solution. The stuff is still going out. So environmentally, that didn't solve it. All it did was buy us some time. So we don't have, we're not ripe with cash, and we weren't then and we aren't now. So I think that this will help us tremendously. I think we should move forward with the study.
Thank you.
So are we voting here to propose, to commit the 8,900?
No.
Lump sum, or that we'll do in January?
Right now, we have the funds in our design services budget to apply for this grant. And then we'll bring this back if we do get awarded the grant. It's a competitive grant. So we'll bring this back to CISM next year if we are awarded the grant.
This is okay.
So no action is needed. Just wanted to give you guys an update.
Go ahead, Alder Gissman.
It just seems like the city has to start to get prepared for the next many years with regard to this. So maybe it's sometime in 2024 is just to lay out in conjunction with our consultants, just lay out sort of what what's all going to be coming, because I think this, as Lisa said, it's going to be a burden, a financial burden on the city, and I think we just have to let people know that this is going to, but it's going to have to happen. So I think the city has to start to be prepared. So maybe a fuller explanation, maybe a longer presentation in some way, just so that we have an opportunity to tell the people what's going to be happening here. It's a large project, expensive, but it has to happen. And thank you for starting this off with this project.
Thank you.
What is our current relationship with Strand? Do we have a contract with them for ongoing consulting, or is this a potential RFP that we'll have to put out?
So they helped us with that previous grant application, and then we'll go out for RFP to all consultants. So it'll have to be a competitive, they will not complete the design themselves. They'll just help us be more competitive in the grant application process, and then we'll go out to RFP for the actual design.
Yes, Alder Hinkie.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Gary said, and we're already looking at 2024, and if they're doing 5 years is going to come real quick. So, yeah, I like what I see.
Okay. We don't need any action on this, so we will move on to the non-existent item number 8.
I move
What
to
everybody gets excited about.
adjourn this.
And we have-
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Alder Denny and a second by Alder Hinkie to adjourn this meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you for coming tonight.